Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I want to discuss something interesting that happened at the end of the book of Deuteronomy. When Moses had died, God was actually the one who buried him, unlike when Aaron had died or Miriam had died and the Israelites gathered and buried them and so on and mourned, as is usually the case. God Almighty was the one who buried Moses. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 34, verses 5 and 6, and it was noted there that no one knows of his sepulcher unto this day. So what I want to talk about, or what I want us to discuss, is why did God exactly do that? Like, what was the rationale for a special arrangement being made for Moses' burial? And after doing some thought, what I came up with to answer this question is the fact that if, let's say, God didn't do that and the Israelites had buried Moses, what often happens in cases where you're dealing with people, like Moses was so important to the Israelites, he had led them for 40 years. God wanted to make sure that the Israelites didn't get so attached to Moses that Moses would no longer be a means of fulfilling God's purpose. Moses would now be like God, right? You see some people, by the time they bury their loved ones and so on, they can't really move on. Maybe every year or so on, they go back just to, quote unquote, share a moment with their loved ones and stuff like that. People who are, long gone, right? As King Solomon said, the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Read Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. And there was that tendency in Israel, which is for all of humanity as a whole, to take something that was supposed to be a means of finding God, like Moses was trying to lead the Israelites to where God wanted them to, and then they would become the worship. You see, the brazen serpent that God made so that those who wanted deliverance, who wanted to look to God for deliverance, could do so through the brazen serpent. If you read 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 4, people were now worshiping the brazen serpent. So much so that King Hezekiah actually had to take it down because it was becoming an idol. If you also read Judges chapter 8, verse 27, Gideon had made an ephod, and ephods were used to inquire of God at that time, but then people began to worship the ephod. In Isaiah chapter 44, verses 16 to 18, Isaiah the prophet was talking about how some people in Israel would take cedar or a tree, cut it down, use some of it for heating, for cooking and all that stuff, and then whatever's left, they would make it into a god, and they would worship it, right? Giving glory to the wood for helping them survive. That's what God isn't like. If you read Exodus chapter 20, verse 5, he's a jealous God. So that was what God wanted to ensure didn't happen with Moses, because he was interested in the Israelites being able to move from Egypt to Canaan. He was very interested in that. So he didn't want something like people beginning to worship Moses because he was, quote unquote, so special. And then they would stay by his burying place. They'd be traveling there from time to time. No, he wanted them to be able to move on. Joshua lead them to the land of Canaan and so on, so that he could still be the one that was important. You get what I'm saying? So in essence, the reason why God buried Moses himself, the reason why I think he did that, was so that he could ensure that the Israelites wouldn't be diverted to some other irrelevancy, right? Because his plan was supposed to be the focus. So by taking care of that himself, then the Israelites could focus on what was really important. So, whether you agree or disagree, I would love to hear your comments or responses in the comment section below so that we can continue this interesting discussion. Or if you're satisfied with what you've heard, there's the like button. I'd love if you could press that. The subscribe button, I'd prefer that even more. And the notification bell, which is a great tool to help you be the first one to arrive when we come back with another question answered. Anyway, have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.